Hi, and welcome to day one of the AI Summit New York. I'm delighted to be joined by Heather Gentile, who's Director of Product Management at IBM Data and AI Software. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
How do organizations need to address the new risks that generative AI brings?
So there's so many ways to think about that, honestly. We've been in the AI governance technology space for many years at IBM. With the introduction of generative AI, we see that some of the risks are heightened, but there's also new risks that nobody had thought about before. When you look at things, especially like LLMs, the ability to hallucinate, for example, sensitivity around PII data, having to filter for things like hate, aggression, and profanities. So we've really spent a lot of time with our IBM research group looking at what are some of the new guardrails that we can build out, where similar to predictive ML, we were testing for things like bias, fairness, drift, performance, integrating these new type of guardrails for these new types of risk.
And in terms of managing that, the sort of AI governance has been top of the news agenda. In the UK, we had Rishi Sunak's AI summit at Bletchley Park, and I know the EU's looking to introduce some legislation next year. How do you think governments can legislate to protect us against the perhaps more negative impacts of AI, but also remaining dynamic to the fact that it's going to be constantly changing as well?
Governments aren't looking to stifle innovation, certainly, but like any new innovative technology, you need to have requirements and controls in place in order to adopt that technology responsibly. And so what we're seeing with AI specifically is, having the right stakeholders in the group informed to be able to establish things like an AI ethics board, and what should the organization be doing with AI that's in line with its standards and values, and then aligning that to a risk management and a compliance plan. And that's where this legislation can help provide that guidance for organizations to understand what areas they should be focusing on. Things like explainability, transparency. It can't be a black box. They have to understand what the technology is doing. And so that guidance will come over time and, of course, be iterative. I think organizations now who are strengthening their own policies and procedures and looking at the AI governance frameworks they have in place, kind of getting an early view on things like the executive order and the EU AI Act, will be very well equipped to respond to those requirements when they come out.
And picking up on how enterprises are sort of coming up with these governance frameworks, what do you think, what are the top three things that enterprises should be thinking about when they're putting down those frameworks?
So I think in terms of priorities, we're seeing a lot of organizations making AI governance more strategic to the organization. Predictive machine learning has been out there for quite a while. Oftentimes, these initiatives were spun up in support of specific business needs, often as siloed data science projects within a certain business or within a certain geography. And just the innovation opportunity with generative AI, but also the investment costs that are required, are bringing more stakeholders together so that it's not really being solely driven out of data science and IT to support the business, but looking at, what is the marketing view on, risk to the organization in addition to risk management, in addition to compliance. With the introduction of ChatGPT as a disruptor last spring, we saw a lot of organizations taking an HR-focused approach on employee training and monitoring of employee behavior, so that with this open access that we have today, there's more accountability for the overall organization.
So at AI Business, we recently did a survey among our audience about where they are with responsible AI and what they perceive as where we're going, the challenges, etc. And among our audience, the most important applications to have responsible AI were predictive analytics, customer experience, and chatbots. Does that align with IBM's view? And if so, how do you think we're going to tackle that? And if not, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'd say those use cases are very much aligned with what we see as foremost use cases for the adoption of generative AI. Huge focus around employee productivity, often from the customer assistance perspective. So that's by starting with data that you have confidence in, governed data, which has always been the focus of AI adoption. Empowering those employees who work directly with the customers to have access to the right information immediately, consistently, really does help to streamline, those sorts of roles and basically help the employee's position raise up to be a little bit more strategic and not one that has to comb through information. We're also seeing a lot of opportunity just from the engineering perspective. Things like Watson Code Assistant that came out a little bit earlier this year, which still requires a human in the loop, but enables an organization to efficiently convert COBOL code into Java with minimal human review of that code is a tremendous time savings. So I think most organizations are looking at what internal use cases can they start with where they have good confidence in governed data, get some wins, some ROI understanding and experience before they start thinking more broadly about how they can be using generative AI more in the spotlight.
And so we've focused a little bit on perhaps some of the more challenging aspects of AI. What excites you and interests you most, say, for the next year? What do you think, what sort of themes are you really excited about coming up?
Yeah, so I think that we're just getting into it right now in terms of all of those different types of use cases. We've certainly had a lot of success with IBM's AI for Business, doing things like enhancing, digital client experience at events like Wimbledon and the US Open. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with AI that are, fairly low risk because you're not going to run into sensitive information and those sorts of things. I think the opportunity for ROI impact to business is also tremendous. So we've been working on a methodology that evaluates not just the use of technology, but the ethical perspective as well, and looking at different use cases where generative AI has been adopted. How do you quantify different metrics of ROI that helps justify the expense around the innovation and keeps those investments going? So those are definitely top areas of focus that I see coming into the forefront for next year.
So lots to look forward to.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you really enjoy the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.